Hello and welcome to another Tiki Tuesday talk. Super excited to talk Cachaça, my second love after my fiance. We cursorily touch on it, but we brought on an expert. We're going to go really deep here. What's going on, guys?
Hi.
Mauricio, tell us where you are. What's going on?
Oh, I'm São Paulo, Brazil, and I'm thrilled to be here at Tiki Tuesdays and to talk some about cachaça. It's my second passion also.
Nice. Well, we're excited to have you, man. And obviously we've hung out in various capacities, but I've never seen you go really deep on this level with it. So I'm excited to get that content out. Evan, what's happening?
Hi, I'm here in Atlanta setting up my bar. So
that's awesome.
Glad to be here. Glad to talk about Cachaça again.
The fan is calming me,
What's that?
I don't know, the fan feels good. Yeah.
Like you can see the plants in the background, Tiki vibes as much as possible.
That's awesome. Good to see you. Steva, you're in a new location. You got a lot more plants.
Yes, I'm in Llama's Plant Emporium, located in Denver, Colorado. It's really great. It's a very exclusive speakeasy here. So not everyone, and by not everyone, I mean no one gets to come here. So I feel very lucky.
Yeah. I'd love to be there. Looks like you should maybe be there every time.
I would love that. That would be awesome.
Aaron, what's happening? You're on Plant Emporium.
Yep. Me and my steady right here. Steady. What's going on, everybody? How are you doing?
Right on. All right, excellent. Well, we'll catch up with you guys in a little bit. We're going to jump into this post-haste. Awesome. All right. So, as per the usual for you guys who've joined us, so Mauricio Maya, Global Cachaça Ambassador. Super excited to have him. Run into him across continents, but really kind of going deep on the category, which is something that's been requested. As usual, chat box and questions, hit us there. Zabby, Facebook, YouTube. Please do share the event. We'll do a presentation 30 to 40. We'll have a cocktail session for 10. We'll bring Evan back for the 5 questions. So Mauricio, just to give a little background, the topic, what the hell is cachaça, which is hilarious and also something that I answer on a daily basis. So specialist in the category, consultant, sommelier, WSET educator, member of the American Distillers Institute. He has his own blog at Paladar Magazine and the first spirits specialized blog of Brazil. Researcher, teacher for more than 25 years, one of the most requested speakers about cachaça in the world. An avid, curious taster by nature, has cataloged more than 600 brands of the 5,000 plus. So you still got some work to do, man. Always seeking to share information and knowledge acquired during his travels. One of the leading experts in cachaça, so we're super excited to have him. And this is a lot of content that, frankly, is difficult to get out in English. A lot of people ask us about this stuff. Myself and Nate, my partner on Avua, have really been trying to get education out on the category for quite some time, but really excited to have you here. So with that, let's transfer to your presentation here and take it away, sir.
Okay. No, so it's very nice to be here and to talk about cachaça. And when I started to give classes about cachaça abroad, worldwide, I noticed that very few people really knows what is cachaça. And so I started to tell them, what the hell is cachaça? Because most people think cachaça is a rum. In a sort of way, it may be, but it's not. Cachaça is older than rum. Cachaça was the first spirits in Americas. We will see a timeline in the presentation, and so you can understand that, because the sugarcane arrived in Brazil in the 16th century, about 1506, 12, 16. Brazil was discovered in 1500. But when I started to talk, I think we need to know the story. As you said, there is a very few educational material about cachaça and very few historic documents about it. And so all this material, I take a lot of years of research and taking some information there and over there, some history that you go to talk to old people and with the oral tradition of cachaça, but very few books. Most of the books talk more about the same, more focus on the production, on the techniques, and I focus my work in the history of cachaça. And so that I say, from where it comes and where does it goes. How I see the future of cachaça, how I see the use of cachaça in the modern mixology. And I think this is important. And to understand that, I need to understand the raw material, the sugarcane. And the sugarcane, it's not original from Brazil. It's not original from the Caribbean. It's one from, it comes from New Guinea, from Papua Island. And it was not used as food. It was just plants that you put in your garden and starting. And it just started to be used as a food when it arrives in India. And so she goes to Indonesia, to China, and it arrived in India. And it was in India that they started to crush the cane and see that the juice of the sugarcane were very sweet. Because at the time, the only way to get sweetness were from honey. And then they discovered the sugarcane juice. And so the Persians comes to India and take the sugarcane and the techniques of making sugar to the Middle East. And after that, with the Muslim expansions, the sugarcane and the sugar arrived in Europe, in the Mediterranean, Spain, Portugal. And after arriving in Spain, Portugal, they bring the sugarcane to Americas, because I don't know if most people knows, but to have sugar, you need a lot of sugarcane. You really need a lot of sugarcane. And they was searching to land to plant the sugarcane and make big sugar factories. So they came to Brazil and started to make it, because the sugar was expensive and very rare, and it was only produced in India. And in Europe, they have a company, the Western Indian Company, that had the monopoly of the commercialization of the sugarcane. So only kings and nobles have conditions to eat sugar. Just to have an idea, 1 gram of sugar at the time was worth about $300 today. And
wow,
it's a lot of money.
yeah,
It's a lot of money to put 5 grams of sugar in a coffee. Can you imagine that? It's a lot of money. And so they
more
see
expensive than Starbucks. You think Starbucks is expensive?
Yeah, it's a lot. And so they saw in the sugar an opportunity to make a lot of money, because Spain and also Portugal, they are a little broke at the time, and so they need gold, and they saw an opportunity to bring sugar and earn this gold. And so the first arrival of sugarcane was with Columbus when he arrives in America, and he started to grow sugarcane in the Caribbean at the Dominican Republic. But just a few years later, he finds gold and he finds a lot of silver, and they abandon the plantations. And that's where, when Portugal sees an opportunity and send Pedro Álvares Cabral to supposedly discover Brazil, and in 1500 he arrives here and started new small village at the northeast region of the country, and they saw that the climate and the soil here were wonderful to grow sugarcane. And 30 years later, they send another guy, Martin Afonso de Souza, with a big expedition with more than 400 people to colonize the coast of Brazil and to start the sugarcane and the sugar industry here. And so the first statement of sugarcane produced in Brazil, it was in 1516 in Itamaracá Island in Pernambuco in the northeast region. And the first export of sugar from Brazil to Portugal was in 1526, 10 years later. But the first real sugar mill in Brazil was Engenho São Jorge dos Erasmos. It's dated from 1532. And it's located in São Vicente. It's the south coast of São Paulo state. So it's here near from São Paulo. It's about 1 hour by car. And there are remains, and they are studying these remains until today. And so I'm talking about the sugarcane, but what about cachaça? At the time, they don't have interest in produce cachaça because cachaça is made from the fresh sugarcane juice. And so when you make cachaça, you can't make sugar. And they had all the focus on sugar because remember, it costs about $300 a gram. And it's a lot of money. The first statements of producing cachaça and selling cachaça is just after the 17th century. It takes a long time.
Really interesting. So Dave Wondrich, who I'm sure you've encountered in your travels to some degree, put together some research for us as well. And it is so hard to find a lot of this information, right? It's kind of casually mentioned or there's some remnants, but the record keeping wasn't very good, unfortunately. And it's also interesting as well that, you know, that cane is not indigenous to the Western Hemisphere at all, but obviously well suited, right? So I think people think about it that way, but it had an interesting journey to get here, right?
Long journey. And the cachaça just started to make more space when the sugarcane industry comes to a decline, because in 1690 they find gold here in Minas Gerais. In 17th, the 100 Caribbean sugar production started again, and they started to produce sugarcane from other raw material in Europe, like beets, and it makes the price of sugarcane fall a lot. And so, okay, let's do cachaça. And the cachaça, it's something historical that we still have a debt to pay, because cachaça growth, the sugarcane also grows with the slave labor. And we have a debt with that, a social debt and historic debt and cultural debt to keep up with them. The cachaça was fit for the slaves in the time and started to be attractive for the simple people, and it was cheap for the farmers because Portugal needs us to consume their produce. They bring their wine, they bring the bagaceira, they bring the Porto to here, but it was very expensive, and cachaça was cheap for the farmers, and so the consumption of cachaça start to grow.
And bagaceira, it's kind of like a brandy, right? Like a Portuguese brandy, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's from the bagasse from the grapes after the wine production. They made a second fermentation and distilled this wine. And so this is the timeline that I said. We have the cachaça that started between 1516 and 1532. And after that, we have the pisco. After that, tequila. And just after that, we have the first documents of rum production. Because it's something that interesting. The Dutch occupied part of the northeast region, Brazil, in Pernambuco. And what they do in Pernambuco, they plant sugarcane, produce sugar, and produce a spirit based on the molasses of the sugarcane because they will not use the fresh juice. And in 1647, between 1651, there was a war here, and the Dutch were expelled from Brazil. And so they run from Brazil and they go to the Caribbean. And what they did in Caribbean, they plant sugarcane, they produce sugar, and they started to produce rum. And when you see the dates of when Brazilians expelled the Dutch from here, and then when they started to produce rum in Caribbean, it matches.
Yeah, and Mauricio, is it Barbados the primary landing spot for them at this time?
Oh, yeah. I think it's the Dutch part of the Caribbean, the Dutch Caribbean, and Jamaica also.
Yeah,
with the English, and I think everything started in a period of 10, 15 years at the same time, because 10, 15 years at this time we were nothing.
Sure. Yeah.
We're nothing. Today we talk about 10 years. Oh, it's a lot of time. At the time it was nothing. Just the trip, the journey between Portugal and Brazil take 3 months.
Yeah.
And so because there were no motorboats.
Sure.
Just with sails, just depending in the wine, the wind, and sometimes they stay stopped in the middle of the ocean for more than a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's tough. Yeah.
So just in the 20th century, 21st now, the cachaça starts. I can say a new phase and have a new image of in the product. The Avois is an example of this. You have an exclusive bottle, a top design bottle, because until now we use reused bottles of beer and plain bottles. Everything used the same bottle, and from 15 years, 20 years to now, they started to have more preoccupation with the quality and the design, and to really promote cachaça. And we have into 205 the Brazilian year in France. It was just one whole year of cultural activities of the Brazilian culture in France, and cachaça became trendy and become cool. Caipirinha was the drink of the European summer. And just after that, Wallpaper Mag called caipirinha the hottest drink of the century. And in 2012, Brazil and United States signed a commercial settlement with the recognition of the cachaça as an appellation exclusive for the spirit produced in Brazil. Because until now, cachaça in the North American market was Brazilian rum. And in exchange of that, the Brazil recognized bourbon as the exclusive American whiskey. To be called bourbon in Brazil, just the whiskey produced in the United States. And it makes a lot of difference because the exportations of cachaça to United States grows a lot after that. So I'm talking about exports and market. Let's see a few numbers, because the numbers of cachaça are huge. It's very impressive that we have about 200. The numbers were misplaced, but 2,000 producers now about in Brazil register in the Ministry of Agriculture, because we have more than 20,000 producers, but most of them are irregular and just produce for their own consumption. Cachaça makes more than 6,000 direct and indirect jobs, and we have a capacity of production of 1.2 billion liters a year.
Amazing.
It's a lot of spirit.
Yes. How much of that do you drink on a yearly basis yourself?
Oh, a small fraction. I can say a small fraction. But this volume makes the cachaça one of the 4 most consumed spirits worldwide. It's really impressive. I think just consumed more than cachaça is vodka, is soju, and baijiu in China, because anything we say about China, it's huge. It's billions. Sure. It's huge. And today, cachaça is exported to more than 50 countries. But even with this number, we just export about 1% of all the volume of cachaça that we produce. It's very low, the numbers. Just to make a comparison, tequila export more than 50% of their production. The Scotch whiskey exports almost 18% of the production, and we are struggling to export 1%.
We're trying, man. We're trying to help. We're doing our part.
I know that. And so what made, we can see here in the chart in yellow, we have a lot of sugarcane spirits around the world, more than cachaça and rum. And what makes cachaça so different and unique? How is it made, cachaça? Why it's different? So the producer of cachaça starts obviously with the sugar cane. All the sugar cane used to produce artisanal cachaça, like Avois, had a manual cut. And so every single cane is cut by an instrument that looks like a machete. It's a machete, cut by a machete and crushed within 24 hours after the cut. we can't allow the sugarcane wait more than 24 hours to extract the juice. And so we take just the fresh juice of the sugarcane and let them to fermentation. In the fermentation, obviously, you have the yeast that will convert the sugar in ethanol, in alcohol, but some producers still using wild yeast. It's a wild fermentation, and some producers started to use the selected yeast of their own farm, because we have yeast and organisms all around us, but they started to select the one that was in the sugar cane, but they started to make it just this yeast, not all wild yeast. And so we make the wine and take the wine for distilling. The distillations, we have the pot stills, cachaça, the artisanal cachaça, and the column stills, the industrial cachaça. I don't even waste a lot of time talking about column still cachaça, because it's really not that it's bad, but it's not so good. It's not the best expression that we have of cachaça, and I think the same thing occurs in the major spirits. But in the pot still that made a more complex spirit, it's one motive for that, because the cachaça is one of the few spirits in the world that have just one distillation in pot stills.
Yep.
All other spirits that we have with pot stills distillation are distilled at least twice. And every time we distill a spirit, it started to become more neutral, like a column still spirit. And so it's the reason that cachaça is so flavorful and so complex. It's distilled just one time.
Yeah, there's often, when we're sharing the product with people, around the world, they're very surprised by the single distillation component. It's pretty foreign to most things. There are a few categories, but very rare.
I think the Peruvian pisco is single distilled, and I really can't remember another spirit that has only one distillation. And so another thing that very interesting is that cachaça, when it's white silver, you can drink just before it comes from the pot still. You don't need to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
You can just distill and put it in a bottle. But most of producers let the cachaça rest some time, even in stainless steel tanks or old wood barrels, and some producers let the cachaça to age. And when we talk about aged cachaça, I think it's the great differential of the spirit, because all the spirits in the world, when we talk about aging, we talk about oak. The bourbon is oak, Scotch whiskey, tequila, cognac, armagnac, all spirits, aged spirits are aged in oak. And cachaça is not. Okay, we have very nice cachaça aged in oak barrels, but we have more than 36 different Brazilian woods that we use to age cachaça. And that makes very singular and very different patterns of aromas and tastes each wood that we use. Avoir have some of them.
Yeah.
Some of them are still hair, like Tapinoa is a hair wood even here in Brazil.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. I remember when we poured that for you. The Tapinoa recommissioned barrel, our distiller's father used to use it decades ago. And we broke it down and rebuilt it. And it's a really phenomenal, interesting flavor profile.
Yeah, we have Amburana that is already famous. And Amburana, it's a really nice and easy wood to drink.
Yeah,
it has a very comfortable flavor, palette of flavors with cinnamon and clove and other spices. And it's the wonderful thing is not added spices at the rest.
Right.
It's just from the wood, just from the barrel.
Exactly. Yeah, it's always amazing to taste someone on Amburana for the first time who's never had it, and they're really just shocked that it's simply the wood in the base of pratas you have there, simply the wood having this amazing impact on flavor.
Yeah, and so this is more or less the images of the organogram of the production. You have the sugar cane, you have the fermented must, the pot stills and the column stills, and we have the storage or aging or bottling. It's more simple to understand that.
And I think what's amazing is it's just still such a simple process, right?
Yeah.
You're literally taking the cane, cutting it, pressing it, fermenting, and distilling it.
Yeah, I used to say when you cut the first sugar cane, you just stop when you have the ready cachaça. The process don't stop. We cut within 24 hours. We crush and ferment. After another 24 hours, we take the distillation, and after another 3 hours, you have the cachaça ready. Or for bottling or for aging. Yep. It's a non-stop production. And the sugarcane harvest here in Brazil take about 5 to 6 months. It started last May, and it will occur until September, October. Yep. Some regions have a delay. They started in June and go through December, but it's about 5 to 6 months the harvest.
Yep.
And we have a regulation here to age the sugarcane, and this regulation is confused even for Brazilians. It's hard to explain how I can call a cachaça aged if I can use 50% of cachaça that's not aged.
Right.
To make a cut. We are in the process to change this regulation to make it more simple, because everything that is more simple, it's better understandable by the market and better controlled.
Yeah, for us, we only have aged or not aged. We don't do blend, and I think for the market outside of Brazil, it's a very confusing concept. Yeah, to have a portion with age and a portion with not blended together, it's a little bit confusing.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
and the most important, that cachaça is only made of the fresh sugarcane juice, and cachaça is just made in Brazil. You never heard about cachaça distilled in Germany. It don't exist. It's just made from the fresh sugarcane juice and just made in Brazil. I think that it's the most important thing to how can I say, to keep talking.
Yep.
So we have the distillations in pot stills. As you said, Pete, it's a very simple process. And when distilling, we have the three fraction separations, as we had in other spirits too, with the heads, the hearts, and the tails. And that's important because we just use the heart of the spirit, and that's what makes so fragrant, so complex, and how can I say, so good in the day after.
For sure.
So we have a lot of substance in the heads and tails that we need to take it off the production, take off from the distilling, and it's easy to do because each substance we know at what temperature it boils, and so when the processing at that temperature, you just take it off, because we know that with 65 degrees we have the methanol, and so when the cachaça is distilling at 55 degrees, we just take it off. So it's this more of the same. And it's an example when you are controlling the temperature and the alcohol volume, we have the separations here. In the small temp, we have the heads and tails, and in the large one, we have the heads, the hearts. And so we have the aging of that we can make in 200 liters barrels, or in stainless steel tanks, or even we can use very large, very huge barrels of more than 50,000 liters, 10,000 liters, almost sometimes more than 30,000 liters. They are very huge barrels.
Mm-hmm.
And here you can see all the Brazilian woods that we use to age cachaça. And it's interesting to know that some woods have 3, 4, even 5 different names that varies in the with the region of the country. Can you take here balsamo? Balsamo, it's in some regions, like the south of the country, is called cabriúva.
Yep.
But it's the same wood.
And then even nuances between types of amburana, for example, that yield a different profile. It's amazing, huh?
Yeah, amburana, it's spelled with all vowels. Amburana, emburana, imburana, umburana, and it's the same wood.
There's actually a question, Mauricio. So for two different things. One is, are the varietals of sugarcane used to produce cachaça the same or different from those used to make rum in the Caribbean?
Nowadays, it's different because all the species, very few producers here in Brazil is still working with indigenous sugarcane. They started to cross over 2 or 3 species to have more production, to have a more resistant sugarcane for plagues and fungus, because one thing we need to talk that the process of the production of the cachaça is almost organic, because they don't use chemicals in the sugarcane fields. It's just natural plague control, natural fumigation, and they don't use chemicals. And so they started to cross the varieties to have a more resistant sugarcane.
Yep. The other question here, and I believe this relates to percentages of heads, hearts, tails. What are the percentages of the three fractions, like roughly? And I know it varies, but heads versus hearts versus tails on the general basis.
Heads are about 10%, and tails about 20, 18, 20% of the whole volume. We just have only 70, 80% of hearts.
Yep. Sounds right to me. Perfect. Let's get back to woods.
Yeah. And so, as I said, it's more than 38 difference of tree listed from all the country. And one other thing interesting, just all of these woods are almost from the Mata Atlântica, the Atlantic forest that is in the seashore of the country, and just one are from the Amazon forest, that is the Castanheira.
Yeah,
but we know
that's a good point to make to people who are asking about those types of elements.
Some species of these trees are protected, and so who had the barrel had, but you can't find it anymore in the markets like Tapinoa. You don't find it anymore to buy because this tree is protected.
Yeah. Yeah. So, for example, as I mentioned with Tapinoa, it's a recommissioned barrel. The only reason we have that barrel is because we had the barrel for decades.
Yeah.
Reuse the wood that's already been used. But yeah, that's a great example. Yep.
And we start to look for the producers that they need just to use legal wood from reforestation or for plantations.
This is a great chart. I haven't seen this, and my gut was that oak caballo in this example was the biggest, and then I was thinking Brown and Balsamo. It's interesting to see Jequitibá as a second, but yeah, this is me, my anecdotal just from being at cachaça bars. I was pretty close.
Yeah, it's very close because here in Brazil we use a lot of second-hand malt whiskey barrels.
Mm-hmm.
Because for decades, for a long time, during the military, in the government, the import of anything was forbidden.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so we need the import of manufactured products. We didn't have imported cars or imported spirits. All must be produced here. But we could import raw material. And so we import Scotch malt from Scotland, and this malt came into barrels. And so the industry used the malts, and they sell the barrels in the market. And it was cheap barrels. And a lot of small producers of cachaça started to use this second-hand, third-hand barrel. That's why we still have a lot of cachaça aged in Carvalho.
Some really old oak as well.
Yeah.
Some of those barrels they've seen some days.
Yeah. And here we have this. Each one of this barrel has 10,000 liters. And if you see one of them have the numbers right just in the wall of the barrel, they have the full capacity of 10,000 liters, and it is with 7,473 liters.
Yeah,
it's a lot of cachaça.
Yeah, the biggest we use at Avois, it's 5,000 liters, but they're still massive. I mean, I tell people there's a ladder it's 15 feet tall. You know, I mean, they're so big. It's hard to comprehend when you think about 55-gallon barrels of whiskey or wine and compare that.
Yeah, it's very. I think this barrels has about 3 meters high, 10 feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this one in the right, this in the left we have the whiskey barrels.
Yeah.
50 gallons, but in the right we have the 700 liters. I think these are Amburana.
Love it.
And they put it in another shape that is very interesting. That thing we do here also. And so we have the most principal woods like balsamo and burana. That's what I say. Amburana have a very smooth finish. The spirit comes out on the barrel real smooth, and have these spices, cinnamon, coconut. If the barrel have fire treatment, it comes with a little of tobacco. It's a very interesting one. We have the amendoim, the Jequitibá. Jequitibá is the second most used barrel because it changes very little the spirit.
Yeah, it's very subtle. It's very subtle.
It's very subtle.
Have one of these, yeah. Amendoim, it's peanut, yeah?
Yeah, amendoim is peanut. But
Yeah.
it's not the peanut that we eat, the peanut.
Right.
It's a tree that have the same name.
Yeah.
And a very hard wood.
Yeah.
And hair too.
It's great.
And so we have these flavor charts with toasted in brown and untoasted barrels in green. And you see that an untoasted Amburana have a lot of vanilla. When you toast it, it comes from less than the half intensity of flavors. And in other hand, we increase the nuts when you use fire to toast the barrels. And each occurs in all woods, the difference between untoasted and toasted barrels.
Yeah, we don't toast our native wood barrels, only the oak.
Yeah, correct. Because it was one thing that we started about 10 to 15 years, because we don't have the culture to toast the barrels also, the Brazilian woods.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's a little aroma wheel, but this one is in Portuguese. Unfortunately, but it was a good idea to translate that.
For sure.
And for the last and not least, we have what we call regionalism. But in the beverage industry sense, it's like terroir, because we have a very different climates, conditions, types of soil in each region of the country, and all these factors makes a different cachaça. I used to say, if you have two cachaças, you will never have two equal cachaças, because each cachaça is different from one another.
Even a couple hours away from where we produce in Rio State, it's different. The unaged cachaça, it's amazing. It's really amazing. Yeah.
And in Brazil, we have some official regions that have a DOC, a controlled origin. That was Paraty in Rio de Janeiro, a Bahia in Bahia, Salinas in Minas Gerais, and Rio Grande do Sul, that is in process. It's non-official yet, and the countryside of São Paulo, that's also non-official yet, like a dog of cachaça. So we have the Rio de Janeiro region where Avoa is produced. We have the climate is tropical with summer rains, and so in the summer is very hot, but in the winter is not very cold. And so we don't have a huge distinction, thermal distinction between the seasons. So we have a Bahia in Bahia, Salinas in Minas Gerais, that it's almost in Bahia. It's more close to Bahia than to Rio and São Paulo. And the south region of the country in Rio Grande do Sul, that where I think is the only region in the country where you have real cold.
Yeah, that's right. And how does that impact the cachaça?
They use it to have some techniques to control the fermentation, because if it's too cold, the yeast don't work.
Yeah.
Don't act. And if it's too hot, they die.
Yeah.
And so they need to have a temperature control in the fermentation to have all running well and don't have any contamination. And the São Paulo, that today is the biggest producer of cachaça, unfortunately, of industrial ones.
Yep.
So that's all about cachaça for history and regions.
Here's another question, a technical one on distillation. Given pot single distillation is 90 proof pushing up against full proof of the still, or might we expect to see 100 proof and up at some point?
No, the average proof of the cachaça in the single distillation, it's about 56% of volume of alcohol. With some modern pot stills, we can reach about 60.
Yeah.
In one single distillation.
Yeah. So for us, our still strength, which is actually right here, it's 90 proof. This is the maximum we can produce at Da Quinta, where our master.
Yeah.
That's the maximum we could produce. That said, there are others that I've seen that are over 50% for sure, right? And so, yeah, I mean, I've seen some of that.
Yeah, with 50% of alcohol, 52 is I think is the safe graduation. We can go even more than that, but to have 65%, the producer will need to allow some heads to go
right
in the final distillation, and it's not so good.
Right, correct. Another question here. Aside from the name and place of production, please give your opinion on the differences between Cachaça and Clarin from Haiti.
One of the most difference, I think, is the fermentation.
Yeah.
The fermentation of cachaça, as I said, it takes in the maximum 24 hours. The average is 18 hours. And the Clarins takes 2 or 3 days to ferment. And when you take so long time to ferment, you allow other microbes to get it in the must and to take some action and produce some elements that will change the final flavor of the spirit. I can't say if it's bad or good, but it's different.
Different. Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it for sure. A question here: how similar is Cachaças Gauchas to the cañas in Argentina and Paraguay?
The caña in Argentina and Paraguay, they are with a little less, and the aguardiente in Colombia also, it's with about 25-22% of alcohol.
Much lower. Yeah.
Yeah,
Much lower.
they're very much slower.
Great. Well, it's been amazing, man. I'm going to show a video, if you don't mind, to give a little context for Agua. So let me see if I can get this going here.
Let me stop the sharing.
Yeah. Let's see if it's going to work properly. I think this is the first time I've done this.
Okay, I think it's working now.
My friend Martin Cade always says sugarcane is the magical grass. And it's true. It can be something that you can have food out of or drinks out of. It's something you can give to animals. It's something that has so many uses.
So cachaça is made from fresh pressed, cut, fermented, and distilled cane. Cachaça itself is earthier, it's drier, it has very much a sense of place. And the process is so historical and been done this way for so long.
Cachaça is one of the earliest spirits in the New World, maybe the earliest.
It's very impressive to have this process and still be able to produce decent quantities with great quality. The beauty is in the simplicity, I think. Mineral water flows down and powers a water wheel that powers the crusher that churns the cane. There's a fermentation for 24 hours with airborne yeast, so ambient, naturally found yeast. The spent cane, the bagasse, fires the still, and the rest is gravity fed. So there's no electricity used in this process. And then there's a single distillation in an alembic pot still. We then put that cachaça into different vessels. For the prata, the unaged, it goes into stainless steel to rest and to solidify.
If you go to the area where agua is made, it's in a massive forest with thousands and thousands of different species of plants. And many of them they've used for hundreds of years at this point to age this spirit in. And so today there's 30 different types of woods they use to age cachaça. And they taste so different.
Cachaça is aged in 30 plus types of wood. So we have French oak, which was kind of the first type, but then many native woods that we work with, including Amburana, Balsamo, Jequitiba Hosa, and Tapi Noir. And these barrels have really unique flavor profiles to them. They are larger, 3,000, 5,000 liter barrels with no toasting or charring. So they impart this truly unique flavor to the cachaça.
The woods give a sense of place which is unique. Some of these trees which make the barrels, which have the distillate, which go into someone's glass, have historically come from the farm where they produce agua. So when you start to taste through these things, that to me is the magical world of cachaça.
So the farm is a magical place. It's incredibly beautiful, very remote. Joining us on this trip are a few key bartenders, bar directors, or owners of some places in the US, and then some rum enthusiasts.
We are right now in the middle of the mountains in Brazil.
We're in the farm and distillery that actually makes agua cachaça.
What's nice to see in a real proper artisanal cachaça setup is that techniques were created hundreds and hundreds of years ago that are actually just as smart and logical today. For example, just designing your distillery to take as much advantage of gravity as possible. Cane press on the highest level, fermentation on the next level down, distillation on the next level down, so that you're minimizing energy usage. Start by tasting it neat. Enjoy it because it really helps capture the essence of the raw material. It really captures the wonderful vibrancy and grassiness, and fresh sweetness of sugarcane.
And I think cachaça brings that. It brings like this green earthiness terroir to a spirit that is something new, and I think at this time and age is something that's really exciting.
We really like to think about each mark as different. So the Prata versus the Amburana versus the Balsamo, they express themselves so differently in cocktails. I really like to have people try them in classic cocktails. A Prata with a Negroni is an unexpected but really interesting profile. Amburana in a Manhattan. Again, it works, but it plays differently. Balsamo in a last word or a gin style cocktail. So our mission is encouraging people to think beyond this one drink that everyone knows, to start by playing with classics and go from there, and to really understand how it can perform.
I definitely see the cachaça as a key component on cocktails when it comes to complexity, depth, and all different notes.
Also in exploring all the different notes, like the Amburana is probably one of the products that we use the most. It's this indigenous wood from Brazil that has almost like a dusty, cinnamony, slightly vanilla quality to it. It's almost like a cocktail in a glass.
And getting that experience as if you're on the farm in Carmo in Rio de Janeiro, like just eating a piece of cane. And that's something that, yeah, you might be sitting in New York, you might be sitting in Chicago, you might be sitting in Mitte in Berlin, and you're gonna have the same experience. This magic grass in one little dose. And help express what this little slice of Brazilianness or Brasilidade for the world.
Oh, thanks for indulging me on that.
It's a very nice place, very beautiful region.
Yeah,
where is the farm is situated.
For sure. Yeah, I'm really always happy to show that because I think it's nice. It's great to hear the context, but it's also really nice to just see how beautiful it is, these places, right? So just really quickly, I know there's some more questions, which is great. Love the questions, guys. So Nate and myself, we traveled down in 2011 to taste over 400 different cachaças, different regions. We mentioned some of them: Rio State, Minas Gerais, Sao Paulo. We snuck 50 bottles back in a suitcase. 47 made it. We blind tasted those with bartender friends in New York, where we were based at the time. And we fell in love with this one, which is produced by Cachaça, Espírito Santo, who's our master distiller. You saw her in the video. Everything is produced there. All the cane is grown on the farm. I'll go a bit into the process really quick. I think you saw it, but cane is cut and pressed within 12 hours. Spring water flows down. It powers that water wheel that powers the crusher. The spent cane fires the still, and the rest is gravity fed. So nothing else there. Airborne yeast fermented for 24 hours, single distilled in an alembic pot still, and then aged or rested, as we talked about. We talked about the range. We have many. We actually have a couple of experiments coming. 2 unaged Pratas at 84 proof, still strength at 90. We have a French oak, and then a number of native wood expressions, including Amburana, Balsamo, Jequitiba Hosta, Tapi Noir. And then the brand is kind of rooted in 50s and 60s Rio, kind of when the world discovered Brazil. The package was inspired by architecture of that era. So you see that in kind of the unique design aspects here that you guys have seen. So, you know, really our mission is to help get the word out on this amazing category by working with a phenomenal producer out there to get there. So with that said, I think you have a drink that you're going to make quickly over here, sir.
Oh, we can. It's a drink that we are starting to call it the new Brazilian classic, the drink that goes beyond caipirinha. And it's a simple drink. It's simple to make because you just need white cachaça that we use avoine. And so we have 45 milliliters, 45 mLs. And so we have 25 of simple syrup, 20 of lime juice. I just put direct, that's only 20 here. And we use 7 milliliters of Fernet Branca.
Lovely.
And a lot of ice. And shake it.
Yeah.
And I'm using old-fashioned glass.
Yep.
And just pour it. I used to drink without ice, but if you like, you can put an ice in the glass too.
Nice, man.
It's very simple. Anybody can make it home, and sometimes it's difficult to get the Fernet, but you can change the Fernet with any other Amaro.
It's easy here. It's
yeah.
easy here in the US and Europe, I'm sure. So that's amazing, man. I can't wait to have one. I'll have to make one later. Stick with us. We're going to go to our questions with the Tiki alumni, Evan. We're going to pop her on. I know she needs to get to work. And then we have a few more for you, Mauricio. So we'll be right back.
Great.
All right. Hello.
All right. Hi, I'm walking around my restaurant. Sorry.
You're good. You're good. We're just going to go hard hitting with these questions. All right.
Cool.
Describe Wildwood. Describe Wildwood.
Ooh. Wildwood is like if the 1950s has been updated with a tiki flair, pretty much.
There you go. Nice. Nice. Favorite Tiki by the Sea memory?
Ooh, I have two. It's when we all went to the boardwalk and I got to shoot things at on the water. That was fun. That and the pool party on the last day. That was really fun.
Nice.
The weather was gorgeous.
Nice. Weirdest experience in Wildwood. Weirdest.
I'd say, I know I'd seen it before, but the monkey shoulder cement mixer always throws me off. It's so huge.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That is pretty weird. Favorite meal not made by my dad?
Ooh. I don't know. None of them? I don't think your dad made really good food.
Still gotta give it to him. All right, what's going on in Atlanta?
Probably
Tell
some
us.
of the best food I've had in a while. So my restaurant is called Watchman's, and we just got rated one of the top bars by Esquire. So we've been picking up, super busy. Thank you. Getting back to kind of almost normal on like our rum selection, cachaça selection, and all that. So it's kind of getting back to normal. Everything's like opening up again, and all that. So it's been a weird experience with COVID.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. But glad to hear that. Excited to check it out. Steva, what I missed?
Well, I love Watchman's, and I'm so sorry that I didn't get to see it when I was there last week. Sister restaurant to Kimball House, which is my favorite place in the whole world.
Awesome.
I think the only thing is what we talk about for next time.
All right, cool. Hold on, we gotta get Mauricio back. Evan, I'll let you
Evan.
go. You need to get to work. Great to see you. Thanks for sticking with us. Mauricio.
Hey.
Hey, two more questions, I think. One is, why does fermentation take such a short time?
So the principal reason is the control of the process. Even if it's wild fermentation, the producers use it to have a pure, filtered sugarcane juice. When you see with the decantation, and this juice is very rich in sugar. And so we have, how can I say, perfect conditions with the juice and the ambient that is all isolated. We don't have windows. We don't have any insects in the fermentation room. It's very controlled. And so the yeast just to go there, eat the sugar, and sleep.
Get to business and get out. There you go.
And get out. And so it's very, very quickly.
Perfect. One last question here. What is the influence of terroir in the different Cachaça regions?
Oh, it's a lot of difference.
Yeah.
Because I was in Avois, you are in the mountains. You are in medium to high altitude in the farm. And it's different from the sugarcane that grows there. Even if I take the same species and plant it here in São Paulo, it will be different.
100%.
Because the soil is different, the climate is different, the yeast will be different. Because
I use the example of Parachi a lot, actually, because it's so dry with a lot of minerality. It's right by the coast. It's so different from more inland produced cachaça.
So the cachaças from Paraíba in the northeast region, they are very tougher cachaça because the region is dry and tough, very hot. The soil is very dry and poor, and so the sugarcane suffers a lot.
So interesting.
And so the acidity in the cachaça is a little higher than a cachaça from Rio de Janeiro, for instance. And this kind of influence we had it.
Yeah. What's up? You got a question?
Yeah, no, I mean, this was a fantastic seminar. But my question is, do they practice blending of different strands of sugarcane juice to create a cachaça blend?
It's common. Some producers use more than one sugarcane variety to extend the harvest, because we have species that they will harvest in the initial of the harvest. Some species they will cut in the middle season, and some species they will extend the cut for the end of the season. But normally they don't mix the species for to fermentation. They just mix the final spirit of each of one fermentation.
That's correct. That's what we do with Avois. We have 5 types of cane, and they're harvested they're planted in different places and harvested at different times through the cycle for kind of maximum yield on that. But yeah, that it is very much a common practice. But we still distill them only individually, right? So they don't end up getting blended in the end. One more question, because we have you. What's your take on toasting and charring?
A lot of what we actually learn about toast and charring the barrels is when we started to import American oak barrels from the major companies of barrels like ISC and others. And I think that some woods have a very interesting profile when you toast it. Amburana is one of them. I showed the chart. When you toast the barrel, we grow a scent and aroma of tobacco that's not present in the barrel without toast.
Yeah.
And we're starting to do this with, there's some woods like Ipe, and when you toast it, it's a very, aromas of orange and yellow fruits. And the Putumuju, when we toasted, it's like strawberry. It's a very strong scent and predominant scent of strawberry. It's very interesting. I like a lot to use toast and char.
Yeah, it's interesting. So Katya, our master distiller, doesn't want it, doesn't like it. She's very traditional. No toasting, no charring. Maybe we'll convince her to experiment, but we'll see. But yeah, it's a newer phenomenon with the native woods, and it's interesting to see the difference. Again, like you taste the range of all these different things. But man, this has been great. Let me just tell you guys about the next session. So we're going to the Batch Cave with Carly Gaskin, sponsored by Plantation. But yeah, I mean, Mauricio, thank you for joining us. It was so good. Questions were great. Really fun to have you, man.
Thank you. It was great to be here.
Hopefully I'll see you in Sampa soon, or you'll come up here.
I hope so.
All right. Ciao.